Welcome to the Yissilmissil Productions channel. My name is Steven Yissil, and today, let's read The Immortals and see how it compares to The Matrix. Today, we are doing pages 21 through 40. So, we'll be going page by page. I will have both pages from each script up on the screen, just like last time. But I hope you're all doing well on this fine Sunday. So we're just going to jump right into it here. And keep in mind, we will be going live shortly after this live for episode 24 of Let's Talk About It. And I see in the chat here we have Zenray and my mom. Good to have both of you here. So just a little recap of last week. We got through the first 20 pages of both scripts. They're both from the same year. And they are not similar. Just the short of it is they're not similar. It's kind of disappointing, actually. But, yeah, let's get into this. So up on the screen here, we're starting from page 21, as I mentioned earlier. But we gotta get this up here. Let's get page 21 of the Immortals up. And let's begin, shall we? So page 21 of the Matrix. This is continued from page 20. So this is the scene with the interrogation room. And you'll see with these next few pages how there are some echoes of similarity, but not nearly enough to constitute outright theft of a script. You know, we're being very objective here. These are big claims that Tom makes. But does he have the couch scene? We have yet to see. There's just a lot here that does not match up. So when you have more, like you have the majority of the script not matching up, then you have to start questioning a lot of things that Tom speaks about. But anyways, let's start reading, because I want to keep this as short and to the point as possible so that we can move on to our next show later today. But page 21 of The Matrix, on the left side of the screen here. This is the interrogation scene. Agent Smith continued. He is considered by many authorities to be the most dangerous man alive. And he leans closer. Agent Smith continues. My colleagues believe that I am wasting my time with you, but I believe you want to do the right thing. It is obvious that you are an intelligent man, Mr. Anderson, and that you are interested in the future. That is why I believe you are ready to put your past mistakes behind you and get on with your life. Neo tries to match his stare. And Agent Smith continues. We are willing to wipe the slate clean to give you a fresh start. And all we are asking in return is your cooperation in bringing a known terrorist to justice. Neo nods to himself. Then Neo. Yeah, wow. That sounds like a real good deal. But I think I have a better one. How about I just give you the finger? He does. And Neo continues, and you give me my phone call. Agent Smith puts his glasses back on. Agent Smith, you disappoint me, Mr. Anderson. And Neo, you can't scare me with this Gestapo crap. I know my rights. I want my phone call. And Agent Smith smiles. And so it's continued at the bottom of the page. So it continues on to the next page. So let's see how this page compares to page 21 of the Immortals. At the top of the page, they enter Berenger's office. Berenger, can I get you some coffee? Jim, yeah, that'd be great. Berenger, Molly, get Mr. Reese some coffee. Molly, Berenger's head personal secretary, is middle-aged and aristocratic. She calmly gets up from her desk. Molly, right away, Mr. Berenger. So I want to point out here that we are dealing with the two characters that Tom claims are the ones that were switched into Agent Smith and Neo on this page. Berenger is supposed to be Smith, and Jim is supposed to be Neo. Tom never mentions this in his plethora of interviews. These should be the first things that he mentions, but he doesn't. He uses the names from the Wachowski script to explain what is happening in his script, and I don't like that. It's very deceptive. But let's continue here with page 21. CIA briefing room, afternoon. The light from a viewing screen shimmers on the coffee in an untouched china cup. Jim is standing by it at the end of a long conference table. Berenger and his assistant are seated at the other end. A viewing screen displays the face of Carl Mauer. Jim is in the middle of his presentation. Jim, awkward but maintaining a seriousness. And so our current procedure is to maintain a surveillance and apprehend the man we believe to be Carl Mauer. At that time, we should know much more. The second case of the other unknown we believe to be this man. The screen changes to an image of Rubles. Jim, Frank Rubles. If he is who we think he is, then he is the youngest looking survivor of the Holocaust. He's Jewish, and if our findings are accurate, was born in 1899. Berenger makes an unheard joke to his assistant. They both laugh, making it appear to Jim as if they are mocking his report. Actually, the joke stems from Berenger being anti-Semitic. Jim swallows hard. Jim says, should we stop at this point? And that's the end of page 21. So already I'm noticing Tom has inserted in here, because Tom is the writer of this screenplay here. But on the bottom, he's talking about how he thinks that people are mocking him. You can see some of Tom's personality leaking through into the script. So I tend to believe that Tom did indeed write this script that we are looking at on the right side. But as far as the one on the left, It's not matching up. So firstly, we have the Matrix with the interrogation room of Agent Smith interrogating Neo. That scene is at a very small table. Like a table for two, maybe four. In the Immortals, this same scene, on the exact same page number, this one is in a conference room with a very long table and a screen in the middle of it. Probably on the wall. But this is left to interpretation, right? Now, Berenger is not interrogating Jim. Jim is giving a presentation in this scene here. Whereas in the Matrix script, Smith is interrogating Neo and basically telling him, like, you're under arrest if you don't follow what we want you to do. So two very different tones here. Like, they're looking for these cryogenically frozen people here, and they're like on a manhunt for them, right? Two characters they're looking for. This one here, Agent Smith is looking for Morpheus. And he has Neo in custody here. Agent Smith has Neo in custody. Berenger is Jim's colleague. They are listening to Jim give a presentation here. Two different scenes. I don't care how much you want to say that it's the same characters, but Tom, in his many interviews, substitutes his character Berenger's name for Agent Smith. So instead of talking about his script and using the actual character names from his script, he just uses these ones. Because everybody's more familiar with these, right? But it doesn't do justice to his story, does it? At least I don't think so. Again, if I was in his position, I would be saying Berenger, aka Smith, Jim, aka Neo. I'd be doing that every single time. But that's not what's happening here. So next, let's move on to page 22. Again, we have page 22 of the Matrix on the left, page 22 of the Immortals on the right. Let's begin reading page 22 of the Matrix. And this is the continued interrogation scene. Agent Smith. And tell me, Mr. Anderson, what good is a phone call if you are unable to speak? The question unnerves Neo, and strangely, he begins to feel the muscles in his jaw tighten. The standing agents snicker, watching Neo's confusion grow into panic. Neo feels his lips grow soft and sticky as they slowly seal shut, melding into each other until all traces of his mouth are gone. Wild with fear, he lunges for the door, but the agents restrain him, holding him in the chair. Agent Smith. You are going to help us, Mr. Anderson, whether you want to or not. Very quickly, let me adjust my camera here. I think we were covering a little bit of that. Smith nods, and the other two rip open his shirt. From a case taken out of his suit coat, Smith removes a long fiber optic wire tap. Neo struggles helplessly as Smith dangles the wire over his exposed abdomen. Horrified, he watches as the electronic device animates, becoming an organic creature that resembles a hybrid of an insect and a fluke worm. Thin, whisker-like tendrils reach out and probe into Neo's navel. He bucks wildly as Smith drops the creature, which looks for a moment like an uncut umbilical cord before it begins to burrow, its tail thrashing as it worms its way inside. Interior Neil's apartment, night. Screaming, Neil bolts upright in bed. He realizes that he is home. Was it a dream? His mouth is normal. His stomach looks fine. He starts to take a deep, everything is okay breath when the phone rings. It almost stops his heart. It continues ringing, building pressure in the room, forcing him up out of bed, sucking him in with an almost gravitational force. He answers it, saying nothing. And the scene continues on to page 23. So let's see page 22 of the Immortals. And this is continuing the conference room scene. Berenger, I haven't heard your conclusion yet. Jim to himself. Conclusion. To Berenger, this may be nothing at all, or something very big. If it's what I think it may be, our country's security could be under a serious threat. Jim looks to the side with a, quote, why did I say that, end quote, expression, and then back to Berenger. There is a pause as Berenger remains silent. Interior, Jim's house. Brittany's bedroom, night. Jim and his wife, Julia, are tucking their 5-year-old daughter, Brittany, into bed. Julia is 33, intelligent, and classy. Brittany is full of energy and a daddy's girl. She is holding her stuffed teddy dog. Jim kneels by the bed. Jim. Good night, Munchkin. Brittany. I brushed my teeth. Jim makes a scared face. Jim. You're not going to show me, are you? Brittany smiles big. Jim immediately reacts in mock pain. Jim. I'm blinded. They're too bright. Jim falls back on the floor. Jim. My eyes, they're melting. Brittany sits up laughing. Brittany. You're a silly dad. Good night, Mommy. So, last week I said there were two instances of this being maybe a similarity. And here we have, what, a nighttime scene. But, like, Jim's not waking up in his bed after, like, a horrific interrogation scene. Jim's at home after a conference and saying goodnight to his daughter. So, I don't know if that would constitute a third possible matchup that's very loosely strung together. I mean, I don't know. We had a corporate building. We had the Berenger and Jim characters in the same room in a scene for a conference room. Not an interrogation room. And I don't want to conflate the two. And then we have this third of the transition from that scene into a bedroom. But it's not Neo's bedroom or the Jim character's bedroom. It is his daughter's. And she's not waking up from a nightmare or something shocking. And it's not the same characters in it. Neo is alone in his bedroom waking up. And Jim's daughter is being put to bed by Jim and his wife. So that's what's happening here on this page for page 22. So let's move on to page 23. We'll keep going here. We'll start at the top of the left side of the screen for the Matrix, page 23. This is continued from Neo's bedroom. He just answered his phone that was ringing. Morpheus voiceover. This line is tapped, so I must be brief. Neo. The agents. Morpheus voiceover. They got to you first, but they've underestimated how important you are. If they know what I know, you would probably be dead. Neo. What are you talking about? What the hell is happening to me? Morpheus voiceover. You are the one, Neo. You see, you may have spent the last few years looking for me, but I've spent most of my life looking for you. Neo feels sick. Morpheus voiceover. Do you still want to meet? Neo. Yes. Morpheus voiceover. Go to the Adams Street Bridge. Click. He closes his eyes, unsure of what he has done. Exterior, city street, night. It is just beyond the middle of the night, that time when it seems there are no rules and everything feels unsafe. Neo's boots scrape against the concrete. Every pair of eyes he passes seems to follow him. Rain pours from a black sky. As he reaches the bridge, headlights creep in behind him. He turns just as the car slides quickly to a stop beside him. The back door opens. Trinity, get in. So that's the end of page 23. And again, a lot of this Matrix script, for the most part, like this is the shooting script. This is also how the final edit turns out. So it's very close to this shooting script, if not shot for shot. Now let's read page 23 of the Immortals here. This is continuing Jim and Julia putting their daughter Brittany to sleep in Brittany's bedroom. Julia. Good night, honey. Brittany. Good night, Daddy. I love you and your little dog too. Jim, imitating Witch from Wizard of Oz. I love you and your little dog too. Brittany laughs as she flops back down on her bed. Jim kisses her forehead. Julia and Jim exit Brittany's bedroom into the hall. Julia, teasingly. You realize if Brittany's teeth ever fall out from lack of brushing, she'll claim she did it for your health. Jim, don't worry. It's leaked out that the League of Dentists is planning to rescue her some night. Jim and Julia enter their bedroom. Julia heads for the bathroom to brush her hair. So this should actually be having a new scene heading. It should actually have, like, interior Jim and Julia's bedroom night. But it's not here. Tom didn't include that. Julia. This latest project's going to tie you up, isn't it? Jim. They want everything we got by the end of the week. Jim now makes a dopey face, mocking himself as he speaks. Jim. Our country's security could be under a serious threat. Julia. Hey, go easy on yourself. Smiling. I didn't want to marry a guy who could make speeches. Jim. Ouch, I think. So again, these pages have now deviated very far away from each other in terms of plot and characters. Neo finishes up his phone call with Morpheus and then meets up at the bridge where Trinity is in the vehicle asking him to get in. But on the same page in the Immortals, Julie and Jim are finishing putting their daughter to sleep in her bedroom, and then they move into their bedroom and start a conversation about Jim's work and their marriage. So now these are two completely different stories. We're going page by page here, remember. There was some synchronicity with these past few pages, like page 20 and 21 and part of 22. But here, page 23, it's deviated fully from each other. It's two completely different stories here. So let's look at page 24 from both scripts. And we'll start with the Matrix on the left side here for page 24. And this is continuing from the last page of Neo being told to get into the car by Trinity by the Adam Street Bridge. So, interior car. A large man named APOC is driving. Beside him is a beautiful androgyny called Switch, aiming a large gun at Neo. Window wipers beat heavily against the windshield. Hey, Midwest Mangler, good to see you here. We are currently reading through both The Matrix and The Immortals. Side-by-side comparison here. Let me go back a sentence here. Window wipers beat heavily against the windshield. Neo. What the hell is this? Trinity. It's necessary, Neo. For our protection. Neo. From what? Trinity. From you. I gotta adjust where my camera's at here, so give me a second. Alright. She lifts a strange steel and glass device that looks like a cross between a rib separator, speculum, and air compressor. Switch. Take off your shirt. He looks at the strange device and the gun still trained on him. Neo. What? Why? Switch. Stop the car. APOC does. Switch. Listen to me, Copper Top. We don't have time for 20 questions. Right now, there is only one rule. Our way or the highway. Neo. Fine. Neo opens the door. Trinity. Neo, please, you have to trust me. Neo, why? And this scene continues on to the next page. So let's see how this same page in the Immortals reads. And this scene is continuing of Jim and Julia, this married couple, in their bedroom after putting their daughter to sleep in her bedroom. Julia, sexily, it's a compliment. Jim, a compliment. Julia steps from the bathroom with her hair brushed out and looking beautiful. Julia, I love your eyes, too. Jim, with a French accent. You'll spoil me with compliments. Julia, did I mention great hair? Jim contorts his face and starts walking towards Julia like Frankenstein. Jim, now you did it. He starts imitating the horny monster noises from Mel Brooks' movie Young Frankenstein. Julia, no, don't play monster. Jim, too late. I'm transformed. I want you. Julia, honey, could we have normal sex just once? Jim, this is normal. People do this all the time. It's a classic. Jim starts humming the tune, Oh Sweet Mystery of Life. I'm not familiar with that song. Julia, I'm not going to sing. So, on this exact page for both scripts, page 24, Neo is in the car with Trinity, APOC, and Switch, and Trinity wants Neo to trust him, and Neo's about to leave the car. On the same page in the Immortals, Jim, the main character, is in foreplay with his wife Julia in their bedroom and making movie references and song references. I don't see a comparison on that page, or a matchup for that matter. So let's move on to page 25 for both scripts. So page 25 of The Matrix continues in the car scene. Trinity. Neo asks, why should I trust you? Trinity says, because you've been down there, Neo. You already know that road. You know exactly where it ends. Neo stares out into the sheets of rain, railing against the dark street beyond the open door. Trinity. And I know that's not where you want to be. He closes the door. Exterior, dark street. A moment later, the green street lights curve over the car's tinted windshield as it rushes through the wet underworld. Interior, car. Neo grudgingly strips off his t-shirt. Trinity, lie back. Trinity aims the device at Neo, its glass snout forming a seal over his navel. Switch snaps a cable into the front seat cigarette lighter. Neo, what is this thing? Trinity, we think you're bugged. Try to relax. She turns the dial, and the machine bears down on Neo's midsection, the cylinder sucking hard at his stomach. Neo screams, squinting in pain as Trinity watches the needle on a pressure gauge climb steadily. Trinity, Come on, come on. On a small monitor that projects an ultrasound-like image, we see Neo's insides begin to slither and churn. He gasps as something wiggles beneath his skin inside his stomach. And the scene continues on the next page, on page 26. So let's see how page 25 of the Immortals reads. This is them continuing their foreplay, Jim and his wife in their bedroom. Jim, you did on our honeymoon. Julia laughs as Jim imitates French horns playing the melody. They embrace. Julia, time out. Julia goes towards the hallway, peeks out towards Brittany's room, then pulls her own bedroom door quietly shut. She goes back to Jim's arms. So here we have the wrong word used for peaks. It should be P-E-E-K-S. Peak, not like, he has it spelled like mountainous peaks. P-E-A-K-S. So, but Tom doesn't want any of his script altered, right, in any way. So the spelling error remains. Julia. Nice Schwarzenegger. Jim. I love when you talk foreign. Jim kisses Julia passionately as she puts her arms around him. Interior, Jim's bedroom, late at night. So that actually should have been on the previous page when they entered the bedroom, but it's down here now. Jim and Julia are asleep in bed. Jim's home office phone rings softly from another room. Jim gets out of bed as Julia stirs in her sleep. Jim's home office. Jim. I assume it's supposed to say day instead of Jim there. And it should say interior at the start, but it doesn't. And he's using it as a continuation of the sentence down there, because it says Jim, and then enters, shuffling the door behind him. That's just bad formatting there. The phone is still ringing. He leaves the lights out and picks up the phone. Jim, hello? Who is this? Hold it. No. Wait. Jim pushes a record button on his phone machine. This is interesting. I'm just making a note that Jim receives a phone call at night as a possible matchup. Now, Tom never said, like, I asked him about if there's phone booths in his script. He said no, didn't he? I swear Tom said no, there's no phone booths. But down here, it says exterior phone booth along highway, late at night. Carl Mauer looks ragged and fatigued as he talks to Jim. Jim's voice can be heard through the receiver. Mauer speaks in German with English subtitles. Jim, voiceover. Can you speak English? Mauer, in German. Something terrible is happening to your country. They... continues on to the next page. I'll just read the rest of that, and then we'll do this with page 26 of The Matrix on the left, so give me a moment. So Mauer says in German, something terrible is happening to your country. They haven't eliminated your press yet, so there's still some time. I'll do what I can. I called you because Helena trusts you. You and your family are in danger. I must take Helena away. Please do not follow us. God be with us all. It has begun again. So I'm a little confused here. Like, unless this Mauer character, Carl Mauer, like, if they're not Morpheus or the Morpheus character, like, he's gonna save him, then I don't know how you could make a comparison here. It's still somewhat different. Let's not jump to conclusions here. It's not a... It's nothing that a court would say this is solid evidence, which the courts said this is all very basic, general sci-fi tropes that cannot be copyrighted for any purposes that Tom's seeking. But anyways, let's read page 26 of The Matrix, and then we will see how that compares to page 26 of The Immortals. Zenray says Julia's the name of his sister as well, I believe. That's a little weird. I think you're right about that too. Julia. So Tom has a sister named Julia, and he made his main character's wife named Julia too. And usually when an author is writing, having a main character in a story, the main character usually reflects the author. That's just weird. Alright, let's read page 26 of The Matrix. So this is continued in the car scene. Switch. It's on the move. Trinity. Shit. Switch. You're gonna lose it. Trinity. No, I'm not. Clear. The foreboding word hangs in Neo's ear for a moment when Trinity squeezes a trigger. Electric current hammers into Neo, and rigid convulsions take hold of him beneath the flickering car lamp until something finally rockets wetly out of Neo's stomach through the extractor's coils. Neo. Jesus Christ! It's real? That thing is real? Trinity lifts a glass cage at the end of the tubing. Inside, the small fluke-like bug flips and squirms, its tendrils flapping against the clear walls. She unrolls the window and dumps it out. Exterior, car. It hits the pavement with a metallic tink, reverted back into a common wiretap, as the car disappears into the rainy night. Exterior, Hotel Lafayette. The car stops in a deserted alley behind a forgotten hotel. Interior, Hotel Lafayette. It is a place of putrefying elegance, a rotting host of urban magotry. Trinity leads Neo from the stairwell down the hall of the 13th floor. They stop outside room 1313. Trinity, this is it. And then this continues on to the next page of 27. So we're getting very close to this scene with Morpheus, which I believe is not in this script. We shall see. We will see today on the stream. So page 26 of The Immortals has Jim speaking on the phone with Karl Mauer, this German that was cryogenically frozen from World War II, and he's walking around present day. So this guy calls Jim on the phone late at night, and they're having a conversation. And I read Mauer's dialogue already, so I'm just going to continue from where I left off. Mauer hangs up the phone. Interior, Jim's home office, late at night. The lights are still out. Jim pops the tape out of his phone machine. He pushes automatic dial on the phone. Jim. Alan. Jim, what time is it? Alan's voice can be heard through the receiver. Alan, voiceover. 3:45 in the morning. Jim pauses, thinking. Alan, voiceover, sleepily. Is that why you woke me? Jim. Mauer just called me. Alan, voiceover. Who? Jim. The Nazi. I can't understand what he said. I took Spanish. Alan, voiceover. I took French. Jim. I have him on tape. Tell Steve to watch the house carefully tonight. I heard him say Helen a couple of times. I think he's going to go to her. So that's page 26 of both scripts. Neo is about to meet Morpheus, and Jim is trying to figure out in this script what Karl Mauer was saying to him on the phone. So let's continue with page 27 of the Matrix here. Trinity and Neo are walking in the hotel to go meet Morpheus. So, continued. Neo can hear his own heart pounding. Trinity. Let me give one piece of advice. Be honest. He knows more than you can possibly imagine. I just need to adjust my camera here. Interior room 1313. Across the room, a dark figure stares out the tall windows veiled with decaying lace. He turns, and his smile lights up the room. A dull roar of thunder shakes the old building. Morpheus. At last. He wears a long black coat, and his eyes are invisible behind circular, mirrored glasses. He strides to Neo, and they shake hands. Morpheus. Welcome, Neo. As you no doubt have guessed, I am Morpheus. Neo. It's an honor. Morpheus. No, the honor is mine. Please, come, sit. He nods to Trinity, and she exits through a door to an adjacent room. They sit across from one another in cracked burgundy leather chairs. Morpheus. I imagine right now you must be feeling a bit like Alice, tumbling down the rabbit hole. Neo. You could say that. Morpheus. I can see it in your eyes. You have the look of a man who accepts what he sees because he is expecting to wake up. A smile, razor thin, curls the corner of his lips. And it continues on to the next page. So let's see what page 27 of the Immortals reads as. This is continuing the phone conversation with Jim and Alan about Carl Mauer, who just called him from a payphone. Or a phone booth. It says phone booth in here. I asked Tom if there was a phone booth in his script. He said no, but there is. So, there's another lie, right? Maybe he forgot. Who knows, right? What am I saying? Alright, page 27 of the Immortals continues the conversation over the phone. Alan voiceover. Right. And they're talking about keeping Helena safe. This is a character in the script here. Jim and Alan, find me someone in the department who knows German to meet us at the office first thing in the morning. Exterior, Helen Mauer's neighborhood, late at night. So I guess from what I remember of last week's reading, the first 20 pages, Helen Mauer, that's the present day older version of Carl Mauer's wife, because she's aged naturally, but Carl Mauer hasn't. So Steve and Tracy, the agents from Jim's office, are on swings at a community playground, sitting and watching Helen's row house, which is less than a block away. Steve is swinging as he talks. He wears a Redskins football jacket. Steve. It's true. As soon as anyone meets somebody, they immediately decide if the person meets their sexual criteria, subconsciously. Tracy. I don't agree. Steve. Face facts. Human beings are predators in sex and work. The reason we do this job is because it satisfies our predator instincts. Tracy, mocking him. And some of us are planter-gatherers. We do the job to pay the rent. And we look for like-minded sexual mates, so our huts will be nicer. Tracy slaps Steve's leg and gestures toward the street. Mauer is approaching the house quickly on foot. Helen answers the door and lets him in. Steve jumps off the swing in midair and lands roughly, face down, as Tracy reports into a small microphone. Tracy. Suspect has just entered the Mauer residence, looking down at Steve, requesting backup. Steve, still face down. I never blow a swing jump. So here on page 27, for both of these scripts, in The Matrix, Neo is meeting Morpheus and they are about to sit down in the infamous burgundy chairs. Page 27 of The Immortals, Steve and Tracy, these CIA agents, are watching this older woman's house, waiting for the husband, who is cryogenically frozen, still younger, to arrive and possibly kidnap his own wife. But I don't know. I don't know what's going on here. But again, two very different scenes, two very different stories occurring here. So let's look at page 28 of both scripts. And again, we're going up to page 40 today. And I'm separating these so that we're not here for like a 20-hour live stream, because that's probably what it would turn into. Because we're reading two full-length movie scripts. And it's going to take a while. But we're doing this for comparison and review purposes. We're here to critique and find for ourselves where matchups occur. And I still am under the impression that we will not hit 100 118, 119, I think it's 118 matchups that Tom claims is in this. So page 28 of The Matrix. Morpheus just asked Neo to take a seat. And I will bust out the sunglasses again for this scene. Just because I feel like it. Morpheus says, ironically, this is not far from the truth. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Can you tell me, Neo, why are you here? Neo, you're Morpheus. You're a legend. Most hackers would die to meet you. Morpheus. Yes, thank you. But I think we both know there's more to it than that. Do you believe in fate, Neo? Neo? No. Morpheus. Why not? Neo. Because I don't like the idea that I'm not in control of my life. Morpheus. I know exactly what you mean. Again, that smile that could cut glass. Morpheus. Let me tell you why you are here. You have come because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your whole life. Felt that something is wrong with the world. You don't know what, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that brought you to me. Do you know what I'm talking about? Neo? The Matrix? Morpheus? Do you want to know what it is? Neo swallows hard and nods, and the scene continues on to the next page, page 29. So let's see how the Immortals, page 28, compares. And again, this is following a scene of two agents watching, like two human agents watching a house of this guy that was cryogenically frozen, and he's supposed to be visiting the older wife in the present day, I believe. Tracy starts walking towards the house. She speaks to Steve without looking back at him. Tracy. That was supposed to impress me. Steve gets up and hurries after Tracy. Tracy, mocking playfully. I can assure you that I never have been so sexually aroused by such pure daring and physical agility in my entire existence as a predator. Steve. Okay, my theory sucks. Let's go. Steve and Tracy start running towards the house, holding their guns inside their coats. The house explodes in flames, knocking Steve and Tracy down. Steve. Holy shit. Interior, Jim's office. Conference room, morning. Jim, Alan, Steve, and Tracy are standing around the conference table. Jim is leaning on the table with his coat still on. Steve. The guy shows up. We go to make the pickup, and the whole house blows. The whole house. Tracy. The cause was recorded as a natural gas leak. Alan, what do we do? A phone rings and Steve picks it up. Jim, I'd say it's end of story. Alan, what? So again, for one of the most iconic scenes from The Matrix, on the same page of the Immortals, does not occur. Maybe something similar will happen here later that somewhat reflects this scene, but this scene in particular is so well known that even to this day it is being quoted by major companies like Apple. Apple has a new MacBook that is being released called Neo, and the advertisement for it says, "Hello, Neo," referring to Morpheus meeting Neo in this scene. And this is the year 2026. So for Apple, as an advertisement using the words that are attributed to Morpheus in this scene, for a MacBook that they're naming Neo, just goes on to further prove that the cultural impact of the Matrix on society is something unique to this script and not this one. We still have to find matching dialogue between these two. I don't think we're going to find it. If we're talking about ripping off a story, there should be some echoes from this in this, and there's not right now. I mean, there's a few scenes that parallel, but like, again, it's loosely based. And it deviates very quickly from each other. It's almost like it goes like this. You know, like, it's not like a DNA strand, like a helix. It's not these two scripts are not intertwined up to this point. And we're on page 28. Two very different things occurring here. So let's look at page 29 for both scripts. So page 29 of The Matrix. Let's continue reading this. They're carrying on the conversation in the infamous chairs in the chair scene here. Morpheus. The Matrix is everywhere. It's all around us. Here, even in this room. You can see it out your window or on your television. You feel it when you go to work or go to church or pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. Neo, what truth? Morpheus, that you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, kept inside a prison that you cannot smell, taste, or touch. A prison for your mind. The leather creaks as he leans back. Morpheus, unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself. Morpheus opens his hands. In the right is a red pill. In the left, a blue pill. Morpheus, this is your last chance. After this, there is no going back. You take the blue pill, and the story ends. You wake in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. The pills in his open hands are reflected in the glasses. Morpheus, you take the red pill and you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Neo feels the smooth skin of the capsules, the moisture growing in his palms. Morpheus, remember that all I am offering is the truth, nothing more. And the scene's continued on to the next page. So let's compare what page 29 of the Immortals reads. Again, this is continuing off from the conference room the next day after the two CIA agents, male and female, witness a house exploding that belonged to the aged wife of the guy that was cryogenically frozen that called the main character earlier. Jim. I mean, as far as we can prove anything now. Steve, the Jewish guy, is dead. Jim, what did he die of? Steve speaks into the phone again, and then to Jim. Steve, unknown. Alan, you mean undecided. Steve, they can't find the body. Jim, I can't say I'm surprised. The girl from the first office scene hands Jim coffee. Jim to the coffee girl. Good timing. To the others. I'll be interested in what the tape has to say. Where's the interpreter you requested? 3 large men in suits walk into the room. Jim to Alan. One would have been fine. Berenger follows the 3 men in. One of the men squares off with Jim. Jim dryly to the intruders. Can we help you? Jim sees Berenger and addresses him. So again, this is another very loosely held together matchup, man. Like, I don't even know what to say. 3 large men in suits? Like, these agents in the Matrix are not large men. In fact, they get more muscular in the sequel, but not in this first film. I mean, they're very unassuming in a way. But here's that iconic red pill, blue pill scene. And where is the Matrix referred to in this script? Where is it? We're on page 29 already. Moving on to page 30. By this point in the Immortals, we should have a good idea of how the rest of the script should go, right? In fact, the first 10 pages should set up the entirety of the rest of the script. So, we'll keep moving on. Got page 30. We're going to read from The Matrix on the left side of the screen here. And this is continuing the sunglasses scene. There are the chairs with the sunglasses and the pills. So, Neo opens his mouth and swallows the red pill. The Cheshire smile returns. Morpheus says, "Follow me." Interior. Other room. He leads Neo into the other room, which is cramped with high-tech equipment, glowing ash blue and electric green from the racks of monitors. Trinity, APOC, Switch, and Cypher look up as they enter. Morpheus. APOC, are we online? APOC. Almost. He and Trinity are working quickly, hardwiring a complex system of monitors, modules, and drives. Morpheus. Neo, time is always against us. Will you take a seat there? Neo sits in a chair in the center of the room, and Trinity begins gently fixing white electrode discs to him. Near the chair is an old oval dressing mirror that is cracked. He whispers to Trinity. Neo says, "You did all this?" She nods, placing a set of headphones over his ears. They are wired to an old hotel phone. Morpheus. The pill you took is part of a trace program. It's designed to disrupt your input-output carrier signal so we can pinpoint your location. Neo. What does that mean? Cypher. It means buckle up, Dorothy, because Kansas is going bye-bye. And the scene continues on to the next page. So let's see what page 30 of the Immortals reads as. Again, this is 4 characters in a room with an additional 3 characters showing up. And then Behringer as well. Jim. What's up? Behringer. We're going to need your files. Jim. Our department is still working on the file. Behringer. Your department no longer exists. Budget cuts. I'll need the files now. One of Behringer's goons grabs a filing cabinet. Alan. Hey. Jim. Whoa. Wait a minute. Who authorized this? Behringer hands Jim papers and takes the tape Jim made of Mauer from the table. Behringer looks at the tape in his hand as he speaks. Behringer. You can keep operating for another 2 days in order to gather any files outside the office for us. Behringer looks at Jim and pockets the tape. Behringer. In the meantime, we'll need the ones you have. Your staff will have an extra month's pay in order to find new employment. Alan looks at Jim. Jim says nothing. Exterior, Highway, Washington, D.C., night. 2 matched black government sedans with their lights on travel single file on a highway. The occupants cannot be seen through the tinted glass. Exterior, Suburban Road, Washington, D.C., night. The 2 sedans are traveling at a distance towards us. Our view moves to and it continues on the next page, to the left showing their destination, Jim Reese's Washington home. A living room light and second-story lights are on. The house is in a tasteful suburban neighborhood. So we're going to go on to page 31 now. But, again, this was Neo being put into, like, he's getting prepped to jack in to be located in the real world, in the fields, right? Here, still more real world stuff. There's no Matrix here. As far as we're concerned as a reader yet, there's no Matrix. It's not even mentioned by name yet. We're keeping a lookout for that. If there's an artificial reality, it is not in the first 30 pages. That's a big negative for Tom's argument here. But we're approaching this objectively. I'm not doing this to, like, purposely bash anybody. I'm just trying to figure out what's what. You know? So page 31 of The Matrix on the left side of the screen here. This is continued from the last page. Distantly, through the earphones, he hears APOC pounding on a keyboard. Sweat beads his face. His eyes blink and twitch when he notices the mirror. Wide-eyed, he stares as it begins to heal itself. A webwork of cracks that slowly run together as though the mirror were becoming liquid. Neo, did you? Cypher works with APOC, checking reams of phosphorescent data. Trinity monitors Neo's electric vital signs. Neo reaches out to touch the mirror, and his fingers disappear beneath the rippling surface. Quickly, he tries to pull his fingers out, but the mirror stretches in long, rubbery strands like mirrored taffy stuck to his fingertips. Morpheus. Have you ever had a dream, Neo, that you were so sure was real? A flash of lightning flickers white hot against Neo. Neo. This can't be. Morpheus. Be what? Be real? The strands thin like rubber cement as he pulls away, until the fragile wisps of mirror thread break. Morpheus. What if you were unable to wake from that dream, Neo? How would you know the difference between the dream world and the real world? Neo looks at his hand, fingers distended into mirrored icicles that begin to melt rapidly, dripping, running like wax down his fingers, spreading across his palm where he sees his face reflected. Neo. Uh-oh. Trinity. It's going into replication. Morpheus. APOC. And then the scene continues on to the next page. So let's see how this matches up with page 31 of the Immortals. And we already read the top portion here, where we're looking at Jim Reese's Washington home. So interior, Jim's house, living room, night. A picture of Brittany, Julia, and Jim is under a lamp on a small table. Jim sits in an armchair while Julia massages his head. Only the reading lamp is on. A child's running feet can be heard upstairs. Jim's eyes are shut as he speaks. Jim. Get in bed, Brittany. Brittany from upstairs. Good night, Daddy. I love you and your little dog too. A bright light from outside the window floods the room. Jim opens his eyes, distracted by it. A brief screech of tires is heard. Jim to Brittany. I love you too. Exterior, Jim's house, night. One government sedan has stopped at the curb with its lights on the house, while the other enters Jim's driveway. Both cars shut off their headlights at the same time with sinister precision. Interior, Jim's house, living room, night. Jim is looking out the window. There is a knock at the door. Julia opens it. Berenger passes Julia, stepping inside. Berenger, may I come in? Julia, nervously. Jim? Berenger, hello, Jim. How are you? So Neo's about to get woken up in the real world. Jim's at his house telling his daughter to go to sleep, and he's being approached by this CIA agent, Berenger, that used to work with him. And they're trying to take all the files now. So again, two completely different scenes occurring here. Let's move on to page 32. And we'll continue reading on the left side of the screen for the Matrix. So, Trinity had asked on the previous page. Or Trinity said on the previous page, it's going into replication. Morpheus asks, APOC? And then APOC says, still nothing, on the top of page 32. Morpheus takes out a cellular phone and dials a number. Morpheus. Tank, we're going to need the signal soon. The mirror gel seems to come to life, racing, crawling up his arms like hundreds of insects. The mirror creeps up his neck as Neo begins to panic, tipping his head as though he were sinking into the mirror, trying to keep his mouth up. Neo, it's cold. Trinity, I got fibrillation. Morpheus, shit. APOC, streams of mercury run from Neo's nose. APOC, targeting almost there. An alarm on Trinity's monitor erupts. Trinity, he's going into arrest. APOC, lock, I got him. Morpheus, now Tank, now. His eyes tear with mirror rolling up and closing as a high-pitched electric scream erupts in the headphones. It is a piercing shriek, like a computer calling to another computer. Neo's body arches in agony, and we are pulled like we were pulled into the holes of the phone, sucked into his screen and swallowed by darkness. Interior, power plant, close on man's body. Floating in a magenta amnion. And it continues on to the next page. And we all know this is Neo waking up in his pod. So let's see what page 32 of the Immortals reads. It's inside Jim's house. And Berenger has just visited with his government vehicle. Jim. Reflective to Julia. Would you say reflective, honey? Berenger, you seem tense. Hold on, I need a little context here. So Berenger asks, he's like, hello, Jim, how are you? And Jim says, reflective. And then to Julia, would you say reflective, honey? Berenger, you seem tense. Jim, no, she's tense. I'm definitely reflective, but I'll keep you posted. Berenger, could we talk alone? Jim hesitates, then nods that it's okay to Julia. Julia, to Jim, I'll be in our bedroom if you need me. Julia exits the room. Berenger sits in a chair as he watches her go. Berenger, she's very attractive. Loyal, too, I gather. I like that in a woman. Berenger turns to Jim. Berenger, what does she know? Jim, put it this way. We don't know what's going on. Berenger studies Jim a moment, as if to see if he's being honest. Berenger, they'll be monitoring her movements upstairs, so we won't be disturbed. Berenger pulls a gun from his suit coat and lays it on the end table beside him. Berenger, sit down, Jim. So, Neo is about to wake up in the real world in his pod. On page 32 here. We're at the end of it. It says interior power plant close on man's body. That's Neo waking up in the real world. Same page in the Immortals is the character in the real world talking to his friend Berenger, who's now turned on him, and is coming on to his wife, pretty much. It's kind of weird. Let's move on to page 33 for both of these scripts. So page 33, there's no dialogue on this page. So let's begin this one. His body spasms, fighting against the thick gelatin. Metal tubes, surreal versions of hospital tubes, obscure his face. Other lines like IVs are connected to limbs and cover his genitals. He is struggling desperately now. Air bubbles into the jello, but does not break the surface. I actually really like that detail. Pressing up, the surface distends, stretching like a red rubber cocoon. Unable to breathe, he fights wildly to stand, clawing at the thinning elastic shroud until it ruptures, a hole widening around his mouth as he sucks for air. Tearing himself free, he emerges from the cell. It is Neo. He is bald and naked, his body slick with gelatin. I just have to adjust my camera here. Dizzy, nauseous, he waits for his vision to focus. He is standing in an oval capsule of clear alloy filled with magenta gelatin, the surface of which has solidified like curdled milk. The IVs in his arms are plugged into outlets that appear to be grafted into his flesh. He feels the weight of another cable and reaches to the back of his head, where he finds an enormous coaxial plugged and locked into the base of his skull. He tries to pull it out, but it would be easier to pull off a finger. To either side, he sees other tube-shaped pods filled with magenta gelatin. Beneath the wax-like surface, pale and motionless, he sees other human beings. Fanning out in a circle, there are more, all connected to a center core. Each capsule like a red, dimly glowing petal attached to a black metal stem. This is very descriptive, and it was matched up very well in the final cut. Above him, level after level, the stem rises seemingly forever. He moves to the foot of the capsule and looks out. The image assaults his mind. Towers of glowing petals spiral up into incomprehensible heights, disappearing down into a dim murk like an underwater abyss. His sight is blurred and warped, exaggerating the intensity of the vision. The sound of the plant is like the sound of the ocean heard from inside the belly of Leviathan. And this continues on to page 34. So this is Neo waking up in his pod in the real world. That's what's occurring on page 33. Let's see what's happening on page 33 of the Immortals. The main character is still talking to the antagonist here. Berenger says on the previous page, "Sit down, Jim." Jim sits. Berenger, "You were a real sharp agent, Jim." Jim, "So why am I being fired?" Berenger, "Your annual psych evaluation raised serious questions about your competency." Berenger pulls out the psyche report marked confidential copy. Berenger, "Dr. Manning diagnosed you as a paranoid schizophrenic with a narcissistic disorder." Dude. Hold on a minute. Hold on a minute here. As I said before, when an author is writing a script, they usually make the main character reflect themselves, right? We never hear Tom talk about this part of his script in any of the interviews he does he? Never talks about this. The character here, Berenger, says about the main character, Jim, "Dr. Manning diagnosed you as a paranoid schizophrenic with a narcissistic disorder." I want to say a lot of other people have seen this characteristic in Tom well before I caught on to it. But here, Tom wrote it right into his script. That's wild. Alright, let's continue here, because we're trying to be objective as possible. But that's like... Tom talks about his family calling him a paranoid schizophrenic and narcissistic. So what is going on here? But let's continue reading. Jim says, "What?" Berenger hands Jim the report. Jim scans it as Berenger speaks. Berenger, "It goes on to conclude that you are, in layman's terms, dangerous and crazy with a tendency towards arson." Berenger lights a cigarette and starts smoking. Jim, "He didn't even run any tests. You can't diagnose all this from a 45-minute chat. Berenger, normally no, but Manning says he's 100% sure. Jim, how can he do this? Berenger looks intently at Jim. Berenger, there's also evidence that you killed Maurer. Okay. Finally, some stakes are being raised in the script, but wow, does it parallel the writer in more ways than one here. This is really wild. Like, word for word. Almost like he took what he was being accused of and he put it into this script. Pretty wild. But again, not a significant matchup page for page here. So we're on page 34 now of both scripts. So let's continue on. Basically, we have 7 more pages for today. And we will continue next week, Sunday at 11 a.m. Central Time for part 3 of this series of 7 parts. We're putting this into 20-page intervals so that it's not so overwhelming. But let's read page 34 of The Matrix and then see how it compares to page 34 of The Immortals. So this is continuing. Neo's waking up in the pod in the real world. And he just figured out he has the coaxial cable in the back of his neck. It's very specific terms being used here. From above, a machine drops directly in front of Neo. He swallows his scream as it seems to stare at him. It is almost insect-like in its design. Beautiful housings of alloyed metal covering organic-like systems of hard and soft polymers. The machine seizes hold of Neo, paralyzing him as the cable lock at the back of his neck spins and opens. The cable disengages itself. A long, clear plastic needle and cerebrum chip slides from the anterior of Neo's skull with an ooze of blood and spinal fluid. The other connective hoses snap free and snake away as the machine lets Neo go. I think the only thing we didn't see in the final cut here is the blood and the spinal fluid, which Warner Brothers probably said was too much to show on screen. And that's just me taking an educated guess here. Suddenly, the back of the unit opens and a tremendous vacuum, like an airplane door opening, sucks the gelatin and then Neo into a black hole. Interior waistline. The pipe is a waste disposal system, and Neo falls, sliding with the clot of gelatin. Banking through pipe spirals and elbows, flushing up through grease traps, clogged with oily clumps of cellulite. Interior sewer main. Neo begins to drown when he is suddenly snatched from the flow of waste. The metallic cable then lifts, pulling him up into the belly of the futuristic flying machine, hovering inside the sewer main. Interior hovercraft. The metal harness opens and drops the half-conscious Neo onto the floor. Human hands and arms help him up as he finds himself looking straight at Morpheus. He smiles. Morpheus, welcome to the real world, Neo. Neo passes out. Fade to black. So Donna, here's my mom here. So she says in the comments, Tom describing himself. Yeah, about the last page we just read. He says those terms about his real life situations, like with his family and stuff. Like, he says those exact terms in many interviews. Paranoid, schizophrenic, and narcissistic, egoist. Like, it sure does sound like he's talking about himself. And hey, John, good to see you here. So we just finished reading page 34 of The Matrix, where Neo has woken up in the real world and was flushed down the pod into the sewer drain, and then picked up by the hovercraft that has Morpheus on it, and he tells him, welcome to the real world. Let's see what page 34 in the Immortals reads. Trying to keep track here where we're at. So page 33 says, there's also evidence that you killed Mauer. Jim says, that's absurd. Berenger, Manning's ready to testify that you think people are conspiring against you. Oh. Let me reread that. Manning's ready to testify that you think people are conspiring against you and that you were deluded by your paranoia into believing that Mauer was some sort of Nazi agent come back to life. Jim, oh my God. Berenger, a top news correspondent told us you called him and impersonated Mauer just before you killed him. That newspaper is begging for an exclusive on the story and a copy of your psych evaluation. Berenger watches Jim to see if he is having an impact. Berenger continues. We know you killed the Jew too and burned the body to act out your Nazi fantasy. Admit it, Jim. You were agitated when you made your report in my office. Your file is full of your obsession. Jim, you don't believe any of this. Why are you doing this to me? Berenger, we're concerned for your family's safety, Jim. Jim, what's the real reason? Berenger takes a puff of his cigarette, still studying Jim. He takes a wireless mic from his coat and turns it off, and then looks up at Jim again. Berenger, you were too good. Jim, excuse me? Two completely different stories are occurring in these scripts on the identical pages. Neo was just woken up in the real world. The previous page faded to black, and now we are on page 35. Fade in. Interior hovercraft. We have no sense of time. We hear voices whispering. Morpheus off screen. We've done it, Trinity. We found him. Trinity off screen. I hope you're right. Morpheus off screen. I don't have to hope it. I know it. Neo's eyes flutter open. We see Morpheus's face above us, angelic in the fluorescent glow of a light stick. Neo off screen. Am I dead? Morpheus. Far from it. Another fade to black. interior hovercraft, infirmary. He opens his eyes again, something tingling through him. He focuses and sees his body pierced with dozens of acupuncture-like needles wired to a strange device. Dozer. He still needs a lot of work. Dozer and Morpheus are operating on Neo. Neo, what are you doing? Morpheus, your muscles have atrophied. We're rebuilding them. Fluorescent light sticks burn unnaturally bright. Neo, why do my eyes hurt? Morpheus, you've never used them before. Morpheus closes Neo's eyes, and Neo lays back. And so it continues on to the next page. So let's see what page 35 of the Immortals reads. And this scene, the main character Jim is being blackmailed by Behringer. So Behringer says, "You were getting too close." Jim, to what? Behringer, tomorrow you'll be charged with multiple homicides, but you won't live long for the trial. You won't live long enough for the trial. Manning was given a letter requesting him to make the diagnosis. He did. He was paid well and was promised you'd have no recourse. Tomorrow, the newspaper will receive the diagnosis you just read. It's over, Jim. Jim says, "So the gun's for me to commit suicide?" Behringer, "I'll leave it if you like." Behringer draws a Jewish star on a copy of the evaluation. So this portion Tom has actually brought up on the Roseanne Barr podcast. But do you see a similarity between Behringer and Agent Smith? Because I don't. Objectively, they don't. They are not the same character. Behringer says, "We are willing to make you an offer." Jim, what is it? Behringer, your aptitudes have been noticed by the highest levels, Jim. You've been chosen to join the program. Jim, program? Behringer, imagine the greatest minds of the 20th century working together and defeating man's deadliest enemy, death itself. The Immortal program will ensure world peace. Right now, the highest offices of every major world power are joining and preparing to usher in a one-world society. Our country's leading the way. A brave new world is about to begin, and you can be a part of it. Forever. I've been instructed to offer you everlasting life. So this is page 35, and just now the title of the script has come into play here. Meanwhile, The Matrix came up much earlier in this. This is the shooting script for The Matrix, both from 1998 here. All right, we got 5 more pages to go for today. We're moving forward on to page 36. for the Matrix, and then we will read page 36 of the Immortals. John says this is the Immortals version of the interrogation scene. Yeah, John, I was getting an impression of that, but like it's in a house. The mom and daughter are upstairs. And if you want to say the conference room was the interrogation scene, it's like the two... I'm really trying not to conflate my opinions and thoughts and creative mind into band-aiding what Tom has done here in explaining how his theory of the Wachowskis stealing this for this would come to be. Like, I'm trying not to I'm trying not to either help nor hurt the case here. We're looking at this objectively, page by page. It's from the same year. This one was published before this one, but, you know... It's all hearsay with Tom with the going back to 92, 93, so we really can't say. But yes, John, I would say this is the Immortals version of the interrogation scene, but it's not in a small room. It's not with other agents there. But this Berenger character is saying that, like, you could either cooperate with us or we're gonna take you in. Loosely similar to Agent Smith saying that, but much earlier, many pages ago at this point for today. John also says in the comments here, Tom said this was the first scene he wrote and the first scene they filmed. Yes, I remember Tom saying that. But you see, Agent Smith is not offering Neo a way out of the Matrix or like working with the agents. There's no blackmail other than him being a hacker and he's going to be put away for all of his crimes. You know, he just says you're going to help whether you want to or not. And then he puts the little bug in him and then he wakes up in his bed and thinks it's all a dream. So on the other hand here, Berenger's like, hey, you know, we got this documentation that you're a psycho and you murdered this guy and the newspapers are waiting to hear from us, so we're gonna send this to you and you won't make it to trial, so here's a gun if you want to kill yourself. Like, that's what he's saying here in this scene. Again, the wife is upstairs. This is in a house. This is in the main character's house. Whereas if we're going to say this is what the interrogation scene turned into in the Matrix, it was moved forward in the Matrix script, but that's under the assumption that this material was stolen to make this material. But yes, thank you for clarifying that, John. So let's continue reading. We're page 36 for the Matrix. Morpheus says, "Rest, Neo. The answers are coming." An interior, Neo's room. Neo wakes up from a deep sleep, feeling better. He begins to examine himself. There is a futuristic IV plugged into the jack in his forearm. He pulls it out, staring at the grafted outlet. He runs his hand over the short hair now covering his head. His fingers find and explore the large outlet in the base of his skull. Just as he starts to come unplugged, Morpheus opens the door. Neo. Morpheus, what's happened to me? What is this place? Morpheus says, more important than what is when? Neo. When? Morpheus. You believe the year is 1997, when in fact it is much closer to 2197. I can't say for certain what year it is because we honestly do not know. The wind is knocked from Neo's chest. Morpheus, there is no reason for me to try to explain it when I can simply show it. Come with me. Interior hovercraft. Like a sleepwalker, Neo follows Morpheus through the ship. Morpheus, this is my ship, the Nebuchadnezzar. It's a hovercraft. And it says more on the bottom and continued. So we'll briefly read into page 37 here before we compare page 36 here. Just continued, Morpheus. Small like a submarine, it's cramped and cold, but it's home. They climb the ladder up to the main deck. So we're going to hold off reading page 37 there. So we can read page 36 of the Immortals. So Jim says, do I have a choice? And Berenger says, a choice? Disgrace and death instead of health and immortality? Jim gets up and looks out the window of the agents in their cars. Jim, or maybe just a normal life with my family. Berenger, your choice is to join the program or you and your family will die. Berenger holds out a copy of Manning's evaluation. Berenger, besides, your disgrace will be their disgrace if this hits the papers tomorrow. Jim says, you are insane. Berenger, the world will believe that you killed your own family. Dr. Manning will see to that. Berenger holds up his cigarette and looks at it as he speaks. Berenger, your house runs on gas, doesn't it, Jim? Not the safest source, I've heard. Brittany enters the room in her nightgown, holding her stuffed toy dog. Brittany, Daddy? Jim sees Brittany. Jim, in near panic. Brittany, why aren't you in bed? So, this interrogation scene, if you want to call it that here in the Immortals, this is happening in the main character's house. The agents never showed up to Neo's house to do this stuff. They brought him in from his office building, right? They arrested him, brought him in for questioning. There's no daughter, no wife. Neo is single. I don't know what to make of that. But this is as is. We're not altering anything here. Let's see page 37 of The Matrix. So they climb a ladder up to the main deck. Interior, main deck, everyone is there. Morpheus, this is the main deck. You know most of my crew. Trinity smiles and nods. Morpheus, the ones you don't know, that's Mouse, Cypher, and Switch. Those two guys are Tank and Dozer. The names and faces wash meaninglessly over Neo. Morpheus. And this is the core. This is where we broadcast our pirate signal and hack into the Matrix. It is a swamp of bizarre electronic equipment. Vines of coaxial hang and snake to and from huge monolithic battery slabs, a black portable satellite dish and banks of life systems and computer monitors. At the center of the web, there are 6 ectoskeleton chairs made of a polyalloy frame and suspension harness. Near the circle of chairs is the control console and the operator's station where the network is monitored. Morpheus. You want to know what the Matrix is, Neo? The answer is right here. He touches the back of Neo's head. Morpheus. Help him, Trinity. Neo allows himself to be helped into one of the chairs. He feels Morpheus guiding a coaxial line into the jack at the back of his neck. The cable has the same kind of cerebrum chip that we saw inside the plant. So I don't believe we see like a chip or anything in the film, do we? It seems like that detail was left out in the final cut, or even in the production of this script. Alright, let's see page 37 here. From the Immortals, on the right side of the screen. Jim's daughter has recently entered the scene. Behringer's just threatened Jim, so let's see what this page reads as. Jim goes to Brittany, picks her up, and holds her tightly in his arms. Brittany, murmuring, "You forgot to say, and your little dog, too." Jim, "I love you and your little dog, too. Up to bed now. Go sleep in Mommy's bed." Brittany turns to leave and sees Behringer. Brittany, "Can you say it too?" Behringer looks very uncomfortable, then gives a forced smile. Behringer, "Your little dog too." Brittany, "Daddy says it better." Brittany exits and goes up the stairs. Behringer looks cold at Jim. Jim, "If you hurt my family, I'll kill you." Behringer, laughing, "I'm immortal. Besides, I have 7 armed agents outside. Don't get in the way of your country, Jim. Make no mistake, I want what's best for her. Do what we ask, and nobody will get hurt." Jim, "Why was the German couple killed?" Behringer, "Carl wouldn't listen. It's not time for the public to know yet. Think what would happen if everyone knew that aging was a thing of the past, but only a few were chosen. There'd be anarchy." Behringer walks to a portrait of Julia over the fireplace and examines it. I'd just like to mention here that this Immortal screenplay has no virtual reality yet. We haven't come across that yet. Here, we now understand that we were in a virtual reality and we're outside in the real world in this very cold, dark hovercraft, and now we are going to be plugged back in to see what the Matrix is all about. But here, it doesn't seem like it follows the same plot, does it? Alright, let's look at page 38. So we have 3 pages left total for today. We're almost done. So page 38 of The Matrix. Continued. And Neo is about to be plugged in to the Matrix. To the mainframe of like their own version of the Matrix, to give Neo a rundown of history and how they got to where they're at, basically. The White Room scene is coming up soon, the construct. So Continued from the last page, Morpheus. This will feel a little weird. There are several disturbing noises as he works the needle in. We move in as Neo's shoulders bunch and his face tightens into a grimace until a loud click fires and his ears pop like when you equalize them underwater. He relaxes, opening his eyes as we pull back to a feeling of weightlessness inside another place. Interior construct. Neo is standing in an empty, blank white space. Morpheus. This is the construct. Startled, Neo whips around and finds Morpheus now in the room with him. Morpheus. It is our loading program. We can load anything from clothes to weapons to training simulations. Anything we need. Morpheus walks past Neo, and when Neo turns, he sees the 2 leather chairs from the Hotel Lafayette set up in front of a large screen television. Morpheus, sit down. Neo stands at the back of the chair as Morpheus sits. Neo. Right now, we're inside a computer program? Morpheus smiles. Morpheus. Is it so hard to believe? Your clothes are different. The plugs in your arms and head are gone. Look at your hair. You were bald a moment ago. Neo touches his head, and the scene continues on to the next page. So, page 38 of the Immortals. Let's continue on with that scene. Jim and Berenger are still in Jim's house, and Brittany, Jim's daughter, just went upstairs to go back to sleep. Berenger. Man is a selfish and ruthless predator. Nothing more. Jim. Don't hurt them. Berenger. Don't worry. She'll be in good hands. Berenger reaches in his coat and turns towards Jim. Berenger. You're to wear this. Berenger holds up a short pin with a brown top. Jim. What is it? Berenger. A transmitter. Berenger walks over to Jim. Jim. What's the matter? Don't you trust me? Berenger. We want to help you make sure you don't say anything inappropriate. Berenger pushes the mole-like transmitter into the back of Jim's neck, just under the hairline. Jim winces. I'll save my comments for the end of this page. Berenger says, tomorrow you'll shut down your office, dismiss your personnel, and report to mine for the next 2 weeks. Jim, what will I be doing? Berenger, nothing at all. At the end of 2 weeks, your death will be simulated. You'll be given medication that will induce a coma-like state. The effects of the drug last 24, and then that continues on. Lasts 24 hours, in which time you'll be pronounced dead. After that, you'll be ready to start your new life. In the meantime, you'll be constantly monitored. Tell your wife I came here to give you a promotion to my department. Beyond that, you are not to tell her or anyone else anything I've told you tonight. So that carried on to page 39. But again, there's two very different scenes happening here. And this is happening at a later portion. And this is the scene Tom believes got turned into the interrogation scene in the Matrix. And if we want to go further, I had some comments here about this mole-like transmitter. Size of a mole. What, with a needle? Behringer pushes the mole-like transmitter into the back of Jim's neck, just under the hairline. Jim winces. Well, that's not a coaxial cable with a chip on the cable. And this thing isn't plugging him into the Matrix. Like, the Matrix isn't even a thing in the Immortals here. In fact, that word has not come up once yet. And this page 38. But this does seem like a more drawn out version of an interrogation scene. Behringer playing the Smith character here, giving the main character an ultimatum, like, do what we tell you to do, or else. But really, Neo's not given a choice in the Matrix script. He's not given a choice whatsoever. He's tracked with the little, the worm-like device, the tracking device. So there's also this, which is like a transmitter, but it's not something that goes into the navel. It's going into the back of the neck. But there's no jack in the back of the neck. This is just a mole. I guess you'd say it's like it's a listening device. That's all it is. And again, I'm trying to go objectively here. Okay, so page 39 of the Matrix. Let's read this, and then we will read page 39 of the Immortals. So we're still on the Nebuchadnezzar, and Morpheus and Neo are in the construct program, the White Room scene, and Neo is about to sit down in the chair. So Morpheus says, it's what we call residual self-image, the mental projection of your electronic self. Wild, isn't it? Neo's hands run over the cracked leather. Neo, this isn't real? Morpheus, what is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you could feel, taste, smell, or see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain. He picks up a remote control and clicks on the television. On the television, we see images of the 20th century city where Neo lived. Morpheus, this is the world you know. The world as it was at the end of the 20th century. It exists now only as a part of a neural interactive simulation that we call the Matrix. He changes the channel and we see a very different city as we enter the television. Morpheus, you have been living inside a dream world, Neo. As in Baudrillard's vision, your whole life has been spent inside the map, not the territory. This is the world as it exists today. In the distance, we see the ruins of a future city protruding from the wasteland like the blackened ribs of a long dead corpse. Morpheus, the desert of the real. Beneath us, the water is gone. And it says it continues on the next page. So, page 39 of the Immortals. We already read Behringer's dialogue here, so we're going to jump right into Jim's dialogue. Jim, Says, what about after the simulation? Berenger, you must never have contact with a family member again who is not part of the Immortal program. If you behave yourself, I'm sure your whole family will be admitted to the program. Mine has been. Along with immortality, they get excellent health and to be with me forever. Jim, who's heading this? Berenger, all your questions will be answered after the simulation. Berenger smiles a toothy grin and holds out his hand. Berenger, allow me to be the first to welcome you to immortality. Jim, just because we'll live forever doesn't mean I have to like you. And again, the simulation talk here, they're talking about simulating a death. So, almost like how we say today, it's a movie. So like people disappearing, scientists going missing, ending up unalived. Very similar. Simulation. So simulating this guy has passed away, but he didn't. So carrying on. Interior, Jim's office, morning. Jim enters looking very tired. Alan has gathered the rest of the staff around the conference table. About 20 in all. There is a lot of talking going on. Alan approaches Jim, puts his hand on Jim's shoulder, and talks in a low voice. Alan, the copy of the file is safe at my house. This is a lot bigger than we thought. I'm damn sure we have an interdepartmental conspiracy going on. I'm setting up a meeting with the FBI's Deputy Director for Domestic Security and the Chief Director for Foreign Affairs. I'm just moving on to the next page here. It's the last one. And I'm going to read from the Matrix first. So page 40 of the Matrix, page 40 of the Immortals. These are the last pages for today's installment. So we'll be reading the Matrix first here. We turn and descend, spiraling down toward the lake bed, which is scorched and split like burnt flesh, where we find Morpheus and Neo. Neo clings to the chair, trying to get his bearings. Morpheus, we only have bits and pieces of information. What we know for certain is that at some point in the early 21st century, all of mankind was united in celebration. Through the blinding inebriation of hubris, we marveled at our magnificence as we gave birth to AI. Neo, AI, you mean artificial intelligence? Morpheus, yes. A singular consciousness that spawned an entire race of machines. I must say I find it almost funny to imagine the world slapping itself on the back, toasting the new age. I say almost funny. He looks up, and his sunglasses reflect the obsidian clouds rolling overhead. Morpheus, we don't know who struck first, us or them, but we do know it was us that scorched the sky. At the time, they were dependent on solar power. It was believed they would be unable to survive without an energy source as abundant as the sun. As we descend into the circular window of his glasses, there is a flash of lightning. Morpheus, Throughout human history, we have been dependent on machines to survive. Fate, as it seems, is not without a sense of irony. So this is more world building. Morpheus is explaining to Neo where he actually is, and he's giving a presentation of what happened to Earth from the time that he thought he was in to the present, which was like 200 years in the future, roughly, because they don't know. So let's see what page 40 of the Immortals reads. Here, Jim's back at his office with his co-worker, Alan. Jim is offered coffee by the coffee girl, but he waves it away. He moves on past Alan and gets the attention of his former staff. Jim. All right. The group quiets down. Jim. It's all been explained to me. It turns out there are no ghosts, and there has been budget cuts. So the rumors can end here and now. Tracy. What about the Nazi, the old woman, the fire? Jim. He was her illegitimate son. The fire may be because she's a clumsy cook. Steve. The city said it was a gas leak. Tracy. My ass. Jim. Gas leak or flatulence? The bottom line is our department is closed. The project and the rumors belong to a different program. Correcting himself. Department now. Jim rubs his face. Jim. I have appreciated all your hard work and will be glad to give recommendation letters to each of you. Before you leave, make sure all your files are turned in. Warmly, I'll miss you guys. People start to leave. Alan goes up to Jim. Jim starts for the elevator. Alan follows. These characters are all still in a real world, so to speak. He's still going back to the office. Here, Morpheus is explaining to Neo that they are in the future. The world's dystopian now. He's about to explain that the sun has been blocked out. I assume that's on the very next page. But currently, two very different stories playing out. No hovercraft. No Morpheus character saving Jim from Behringer. I'm still unsure who the Trinity character is supposed to be. I guess that's neither here nor there right now, right? So that's going to be it for today. I appreciate you guys being here. Next Sunday we will do pages 41 through 60. And then we will be nearly halfway done with reading both scripts in their entirety. So I am doing another Let's Talk About It immediately after this stream ends. Give or take 5 to 10 minutes of buffer time. I actually have it scheduled for 2 o'clock. We got 10 minutes until 2. So I'll meet you over there on the other stream, and we will continue watching the Tom Althouse interview that we left off on last week. We left off at like an hour and 22 minutes of a 3-hour interview. And we will continue to critique that interview of Tom's for part 24, or episode 24 of Let's Talk About It. So this will be it until next week for Let's Read the Immortals and how does it compare to the Matrix. Again, this is Yissilmissil Productions. I am Steven Yissil. And until the next one, class dismissed.